Hey, this is Steve from Wolves of the Gate, and you're listening to Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 422 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here as always, and this week's a great one. Steve Cobucci of Wolves at the Gate is here to talk about Wolves at the Gate's brand new album, Wasteland. It drops tomorrow, if you're hearing this today that this podcast drops. Brand new album, Wasteland, is out May 30th, so by the time you're listening to this episode, this album should be out. You need to check it out. Great metal band, putting out great music, awesome concept style album, and there's already some not just good music videos, there's some amazing music videos released for this, and we're going to be talking about that with Steve coming up here shortly. But before we do, I need to let you know who sponsors this podcast. Sunset Tattoo, a tattoo shop located in Midtown Tulsa. Their tattoos are done good and proper. They're state licensed. Well over 25 years of experience from Jake and his crew over there. Native American owned, and a female artist on staff 24/7. Well, 24/7 might be a weird way to put it, but full-time is the wording I'm looking for. Sunset Tattoo, you can check out all their work on their socials. Sunset Tattoo Tulsa on both Facebook and Instagram. You can see all the photos and see that they specialize in all different styles. I've had work done by Jake over there a couple times, and I'm very happy with it. I know many others that have had work done by Sunset Tattoo and are very happy with it as well. They've been doing this a long time. They're very good at it. They're very knowledgeable. So if you hit them up to set up a time to have a consultation, talk about what work you're looking to have done, they can do that with you anytime. They also accept walk-ins. So shoot them a message or walk in, give them a call, and tell them you heard about them right here on Thunder Underground. We've also got DEB Concerts, a concert promoter based right here in the Tulsa area as well. And they've been bringing great rock and roll acts to the downtown Tulsa area for many years now, both at the club level and at the arena level at the BOK Center. And on top of that, they book the Roadhouse DEB concert stage at Rocklahoma every year. This year, of course, is no different. Rocklahoma happens in Pryor, Oklahoma, every Labor Day weekend. So coming up this Labor Day weekend, if you're going out to Rocklahoma, hit up rocklahoma.com for the entire lineup. But the DEB concert stage that they promote and put on features the pre-party. So if you have the full 3-day ticket to Rocklahoma, you can get out there Thursday night to check out some great pre-party action to get yourself pumped for the entire weekend, and that will be headlined by Sebastian Bach. Of course, most well known for his time with all those hits from Skid Row in the late 80s and early 90s. That day will also feature the mighty Lita Ford and Trickster, both of course from the heyday of 80s and early 90s glam rock as well. I've also got Rocket Science, some great friends of this podcast, and they have a great podcast of their own, so check that out, Tulsa Music Stream. The rest of the weekend will feature sets on the DEB concert stage from Mike Tramp, playing all the hits of White Lion. He was just on this podcast last summer. Also, Orianthi, an amazing guitarist who I'm super pumped to finally get the chance to see live. She, of course, used to be with Alice Cooper for many years and has a lot of great solo work out there. We've also got Van Halen, a great Van Halen tribute act, some great regional and area acts like our good friends in Dime Store Riot and Fist of Rage and One Night Stand will all be out there, among many others. So hit up rocklahoma.com for the entire lineup. Hit up debconcerts.com to be kept up to date for everything DEB Concerts is doing as well. And of course, follow all the socials, and we'll tell you about everything right here. And speaking of Rocklahoma, Rocklahoma Bitches is also one of our sponsors. Rocklahoma Bitches is an entity out there at Rocklahoma that has been basically sharing the love of just having a great time at Rocklahoma for many years now, going clear back to 2011. And here we are in 2025. Rocklahoma Bitches, of course, are very generous and caring people. They will give you their merch. They don't sell any of this stuff. So anytime you see Christy or Kendra out there, they usually got something they'll give you, whether it's a t-shirt, a bracelet, or a bag, a pen, a guitar pick, stickers for your nipples, all that great stuff. And on top of being generous in that aspect, they're even more generous in the aspect that they sponsor the Cancer Sucks event benefit every year that happens in Tulsa. That, of course, all those proceeds go to help cancer research, great organization based out of the Tulsa area That show happens late November, December every year at the Cain's Barroom. They sponsor that. And of course at Rocklahoma every year. Rocklahoma puts out for auction guitars autographed by the artists that are playing that year. And Christy from Rocklahoma Bitches usually wins herself one of those every year as well, with all that money going towards great charities as well. So hit up Rocklahoma Bitches when you're out there. If you hadn't heard about them before right now and you're going to Rocklahoma, I'm kind of surprised, but either way, mention you heard about him right here. All right, let's get into the good stuff here. Steve Cobucci is the guitarist and vocalist for Wolves at the Gate. He is also, I would say, the mastermind. Would that be the correct word? He's the primary songwriter behind what you hear. We talk a lot about his songwriting process when it comes into writing and production, because he's handled production as well, but he's been co-producing, within the band and bringing in outside producers as well. We talk about all those elements. Steve's a great songwriter and, of course, great musician. Wolves at the Gate has been doing this a while. If you're not familiar with them, dig back through there. This new album, Wasteland, is powerful. This is one of those albums that I think should be on a lot of year-end lists for the, best metal albums of 2025. Great concept album. Great elements of metalcore. You've got industrial elements in there creeping into the mix now. Some groove elements, almost proggy elements at times. This band, does it all, does it very well. The dual vocalist element. Steve, of course, handles the clean vocals. We're going to talk about all this with Steve, and one of the big things we're going to talk about is the music videos that they currently have out. They've released videos for Parasite and for the single Death Clock. And I'm not just saying that to let you know, hey, this band released a couple videos for a couple of their singles. Because I'm saying this because this is a little bit more than a typical music video. Of course, throughout, history, it's always been a thing to release a video that has a short film around it, that has a big intro. That kind of became a thing once MTV exploded in the 80s. But still, it wasn't one of those things where, say, here's 10 or 15 new music videos coming out this week. Maybe one or two of them might have that aspect to them. So it was never anything that was every video coming out by any means. And of course, whenever, MTV in that aspect kind of died, music industry changed. And we, now we're in an era where the visual aspect is everything. We've been seeing things like this throughout the past 2 years, but still not even at the level that I would have expected. I would have expected things like this would have become more of the norm, and maybe that's the way we're heading, and maybe Wolves at the Gate is, at the forefront of it. But these music videos that they've released with short films around them aren't just your typical, hey, let's just, get some of our buddies and, kind of try to make something cool. This is, legit film production, like he talks about, actors that aren't just acting in music videos. These are actors that, act in film and TV and all that kind of stuff. And they've got a great storyline around it. And it really pulls you in. Like when I watched it, the first time I watched Parasite, before the song started, we're like 7-8 minutes in, I'm sitting there watching this, kind of forgetting that I'm watching, an intro to the song Parasite. Basically, I'm sitting here kind of getting wrapped up into this moment. And between the two videos they've got out so far, they've got probably, I should have, looked at the actual times, but I think Parasite was around the 14, 15-minute mark, and Death Clock was around the 10, 11-minute mark. So we're talking roughly 25 minutes so far of footage between these two videos. And as we talk about here in the episode coming up, there's going to be more to the story coming out here with the songs from this album. So when this is all said and done, we could have, an hour's worth of just film footage wrapped around, another 30 minutes worth of songs. So it's kind of exciting to see where this is going, because it's already, like a good movie quality story going on. Great music on top of that. This wouldn't have as much impact, of course, if the music wasn't at the level that I'm talking about with the film aspect they got going on. So I'm saying all this to implore you. We can say this every week when, an artist is promoting their new album or their new work. hey, there's a new music video too. Some people love checking out new music videos. Some people that's not part of their music, consuming process, and some people do both. But so what I'm trying to tell you is that whatever category you fall in this time, you definitely need to do both. So check out the brand new album, Wasteland from Wolves at the Gate, and then on top of that, check out these fantastic videos they have out so far, and subscribe to them on YouTube as well so you don't miss these future ones that come out. Really looking forward to seeing what this band has coming for the rest of their, kind of era here pushed around Wasteland. All right, so without me just explaining that to you, let's jump into this and let Steve talk to you about Wasteland. Here is Steve Cobucci of Wolves at the Gate. Wasteland comes out here at the end of the month. You've already got 4 singles out. What can fans expect from, the rest of the tracks and how they might expand on what we've already heard?
Yeah, I think what the rest of the tracks are going to do is the thing that I think is special about this album for us as opposed to past releases is it really was intended to be heard as an album from front to back. And so while hopefully people can, enjoy the singles as they've heard them, there's a whole context that the rest of these songs will fit into. And thematically, I think they'll see kind of how there's a bit of like a story and a narrative throughout the album. And then with that, yeah, there's just other elements to the other songs that I think grab like sounds and emotions and like feelings that even the singles we've put out uh, don't capture. So
Would you say this is a concept album or is it just like loosely tied together?
it is as much as concept album is a dirty word, maybe. It is. It is. Yeah, it's definitely as much as it could be. Yeah, it is a concept album.
Okay. Well, you've also incorporated, like you talked about in the press release, and I listened to the album last night. There's a lot of synths and a lot of,
Mhm.
more electronic elements added. Something that's always intrigued me about that, like during the writing process for you, is that something that you hear while you're writing, or is that something that after the song's written, you go back in and think, okay, this would sound good here, this would sound good there.
Yeah, it's chicken or the eggs. Like sometimes a song gets written and I want to add those elements in because I can kind of I start picturing it as I'm working the song. Other times, like the song Synthetic Sun, the whole song started from basically like the electronic elements you hear at the beginning of the song. I was just like messing around with stuff and I came up with that. And that's what inspired me to write the riff. So I just looped that break beat and I just started playing guitar and I came up with the riff because I was kind of hearing the riff over that break beat. Um, and I did a similar thing for a song called Smoke, where there's like synthy cinematic sound, that sounds like, aliens are invading in the beginning of the song that just I kind of looped that with the drum beat and I started writing, just kept playing guitar until came up with the riff that came right after it. So, yeah, so sometimes it was the electronic element first and other times it was, the guitar work first and then adding that later.
Is the electronic aspect something you have, a lot of knowledge and experience in, or did you have to incorporate others in to help you with that?
It's something that's been growing for me. I really started like fiddling around with that probably back in 20 uh 2016. I've always just been so intrigued with, anything recording wise and so anytime I see, we've worked with like producers back in the day, I'd see them using stuff and I try to find a way to, you know, scrounge up some money and download that and play with it. And so I've just been like slowly working on that over the years. And it's really exciting for me to be able to incorporate that into our music more because I listen to a lot of other music that does that, that incorporates those elements. And I don't know, it's just been fun for me, a new way to yeah, convey a song idea.
In the live aspect, is it something you want to incorporate into like some of the older songs that didn't include that? Or
Actually, what I've done, over the years is I've added some of those types of elements into our live set where it feels appropriate, especially, while still trying to keep the integrity of the song, but sometimes there's a way that I think we could maybe sonically boost the sound and feel of an older song. And there are probably subtle things that people don't notice, but I think it is something that maybe gives a little bit more weight and like continuity as well to like a certain set that we're playing. And that stuff's always changing. So,
as far as the production goes, like you mentioned, you've worked with a lot of different guys throughout the years, and you and Joey have acted as co-producers in recent years.
hmm
And now you've brought in Josh Gilbert. Like, what did he bring to this album that might set it apart from any of your previous work with producers?
yeah, I mean, I would say he 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 was the thing that I appreciate about him is it was all like strictly creative. And so all of his efforts, it wasn't none of it went into like what guitar are you going to use or guitar tone. Obviously, those are things that he cares about. But when we brought him in, we're like, we really want your brain and your creativity in that end. And so, how can you help us take these songs, and push them in maybe into directions or places that we can't get them to. And so, really, what we did a lot of the time is I just would write a song and say, "Hey, how can you help me like enhance this? Like, how can it be better?" And he was really good. A lot of it, there were some things that were like big ideas, and there were other things that was just a lot of little ideas that add up. And that to me is like kind of the showcase of his skill is that he was able to help with some maybe macro big picture ideas, but he also wasn't afraid to get into a lot of the micro details and but those things end up making a big difference if there's a bunch of little small things that you're changing or different ways to maybe interpret, a guitar lead or how to make it sound differently, just to try and find people have been using distorted guitars forever, and how can we maybe do something that might like just feel a little different than the norm. That's what I appreciated about what he contributed.
Well, when you say, like, say in the instances where it was a big idea, was it changing a song you had written to make it
Yeah.
like different than what it was? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one of those songs was Parasite. We had the idea of the song and the identity of it, but there were just things that were missing, and it was incomplete too. I didn't have an ending to the song, and I remember when we were working with him, I just appreciated sort of his like he he wasn't willing to settle, and that's how I am. I'm kind of like no stones left unturned, like I'm willing to like put the work in and be patient and offer up a lot of bad ideas to finally find that right one. And that's what that process was for that song. And there were like probably two or three different instances where we felt like, okay, we figured out what the song needs to be, and then we'd listen through again and be like, no, it's missing something. And I so appreciated that he had those instincts, and it could have been very easy for him to go, yeah, this is good enough, like anybody can do that. And we might have been pleased, but he was willing to just like even just push himself, and that I really appreciated because that's how I approach music, and it's invaluable to have somebody care about something that's it's ours, but he's caring about it like it's his, and I was grateful for that.
As someone that's worked it both ways, like, you did the production basically in-house in the band the last couple albums,
hmm
but and you've also, worked with a lot of other guys. Do you like it better when you have that outside input? So it's not just strictly like, here's my idea, let's go with it.
hmm Yeah, it's faster. I'll tell you that
Yeah,
to
okay.
have outside input, it's definitely faster, because you get that instant feedback, and obviously, in a way, there's four other producers in the band with me, which is the guys in the band, but sometimes you just can't see outside of yourself, and also you can't quite see what you could be sometimes, or again, like Josh and I have a lot of similar music tastes, but there's also a lot of influences he has and experiences that he has that I don't have. And that's what he was able to bring to the table is just a different perspective. It doesn't matter if we could have listened to the same exact bands our whole life, and he could still have a different perspective because creativity is it's an intangible. It's not a hard science, it's a soft science, and it's unique and particular to each individual. And that's what was really helpful is to have somebody, just outside of my mind and my perspective and what I naturally hear. And so, yeah, it's been really valuable to us, and we're going to continue to moving forward to work with them, on things to come, which yeah, we're excited about, and we just have a great working relationship too. Just so easy. It's just fun. Um, and sometimes making music can feel not fun because
Yeah,
it's hard, but um, yeah, I don't think we ever had a bad day working together. So,
that's good. Were you guys friends prior to this, or did you guys ever play shows together, or like how did the connection come about?
Josh and I had run into each other a number of times over the years just from touring, and it's always like there's a mutual friend, that we know of each other, and I had noticed that he had started um, to get involved in producing, and I know his involvement that he'd had in other music that he'd been involved in the past, and you know, I've always liked his creative instincts, and so I'd reached out to him a long time ago, even before this project, and just said, "Hey, I noticed that this is something that you're doing, is would you be interested in working with us, to that effect?" And he is like, "Yeah, totally." And finally, things worked out that we could work on music together for this release. And so it's kind of a long time coming. We'd worked with Joseph, who they run a studio together. He mixed our album. He mixed the cover album we did before this album, and we had such a great experience with Joseph because again, he's another super talented individual, and he was involved in the production process as well too, offering ideas, and it was really helpful. And he, uh, I tracked I think three or four of the songs with him at his studio, which was a lot of fun for me to not track my own vocals because he's he's critical in a good way, but he's way less critical than I am when I'm tracking my own vocals. And he's just like, no, dude, this is good. And it's really nice to have somebody who can do that. And also, I picked up a lot of tricks from him just about vocal delivery and things to think about. And I'm just always so grateful to get those experiences because it just makes me better, hopefully.
Well, you kind of almost answered a question that I had. As a producer in your band, like, are you more critical on yourself than you are the other guys in the band, or do you hold them at I mean, obviously you hold them at an equal standard, but is it like just subconsciously, are you harder on yourself?
Yeah, I'm definitely harder on myself. For me, it's a bit of a different approach for the guys because I know sometimes you can't see your own potential, and I know the guys in the band, and the way that if I may like try to like push them, it would be like it's more so through like positive affirmation because it's like dude, I know you're like you always have great ideas when it comes to X or like with Abishai, it's like when I know that there's a spot where like the drums just need to just feel as like groovy as possible and interesting and different. He's just innately so good at that. And it's just trying to, yeah, I guess encourage the guys to, it's like, I trust you. So like do your thing. It's the same like when I track vocals with Nick. So I track all of his vocals and I'm just his hype guy when I track his vocals. I'm like if I if I didn't edit some of the stuff out, like after a lot of his takes, it has just like me going like, "Woo, yeah, that's so good, dude." Or like, "Whoa, dude, like I can't believe that sounds so good." Because we're just trying to have a good time. I mean, you need the adrenaline when you're tracking, screams and stuff like that. And so I'm just trying to keep that train going. And then with Joe, like he tracks all the rhythm guitars. I mean, like he doesn't need me he is such a great guitar player, and the thing I know about him is like I know if he has an idea about how to like maybe like end a riff differently or have an idea just trust him, like go for it. And if it's not there, like I know you already tracked the right version of it anyway, but he's just yeah, so like we just have such a good team of guys. But yeah, nobody's harder on me than I am, that's for sure.
Well, you mentioned tracking Nick's vocals. Like, how many takes or how long did it take on Parasite in that like that verse that's early? I think it's about a minute in, where it's like a machine gun
Yeah.
type thing. Like, how easy or hard was that?
I mean, so that was there's a lot of times like I'll write the vocals and the lyrics, but that pattern was his idea that he sent me a while back when we were working on the demo. And he did the whole thing in one take anyway. So I was just like, I was just stoked to just see because I asked him, I was like, dude, did you want to take that demo? He's like, yeah. He's like, I don't really know how to like edit vocals very well. I was like, that's awesome. So yeah, tracking that was a lot of fun. And really it was just trying to find the right tone, and delivery. And so, I mean, he's easy to track. He's just got such a big, powerful voice, and he's just willing to go. He's willing to do whatever, if I tell him like, "Hey, try to do it like this," and he doesn't ever question if that sounds weird or not. He's like, he'll try it. So he's just such a good team player to that effect.
Well, as a producer, I mean, I know technology's come a long way, but like, how difficult is the process of like putting together an album when you recorded it in three different studios? Like, is that a difficult process still, or no? To like
Yeah,
make it sound streamlined at least.
I've gotten better at it over the years. Really, the hardest thing is just being organized. Um, and but it's just trying to you really have to think steps ahead of what you're doing. You can't just be, sort of like nearsighted on what you're working on. You have to be kind of thinking about the big picture always, and that's why I end up being the one to sort of, manage that and control all that because I know everything that's involved in the songs because I've written them and I do all the like the production elements and synths and whatnot. And so I'm thinking about the big picture, and I really just try to get everybody else to specialize in in their craft and in their part of the song and their contribution. Um, and that's what's great for me is I can trust all of them to be excellent at what they're doing. Um, because we've sort of set up systems and also just literally they're talented individuals. So it's gotten easier over the years, but it still is like it's still like a little nerve-wracking because I just always feel like, what if I'm forgetting? It would be way easier if we were just all together and all of it was just going right into my computer at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's just a lot of like checking and double checking and still making mistakes and then having to fix it.
Yeah. We obviously have to talk about the Parasite video
Oh,
because I
cool.
mean, this thing is absolutely fantastic. And just making this into like, a short film the way you guys did. And it's just something that I thought there would be more of these days. I mean, you see it every once in a while, but
hmm
it's just whose idea was it to like expand this into what it is and, what Death Clock is and all that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really just kind of took the ambition of the production team we worked with, Garrett Drake and Kevin Johnson. Because I explained to them, I wrote out like a 3-page, narrative that I was just kind of using as it was what I sent to the record label when I was pitching to them the idea of what we wanted to do with the album, and so I sent that to them as well just trying to see like gauge their interest is like I understand that this is a little bit more complicated and we just want to see if they were interested in the story and if they had any interest in helping us communicate that through a music video, and they loved the story and really invested themselves into it, and they had visions in their own head of like we want to try and make this a short film. Like we want this to be more than just a music video. And so I was just honored by the fact that they would want to invest themselves create. They could have just said like, yeah, let's make a killer video. And we would have been really pleased, to get that. But they wanted to see like how can we approach this differently than just make just a music video. And so a lot of it was really their willingness to buy into the story and what we're trying to communicate in that message. And so yeah, I'm so grateful for those guys. And yeah, it just feels kind of like a gift for us creatively, you know.
As the writer and director, like how much of the input did Garrett have in like what we see, or and how much of it was strictly off of your concept?
So I mean, yeah, Garrett definitely he has because he has such a great mind for film and like that's his medium. You know, there was no way that I would ever be able to put together like a screenplay essentially the way that he did because like I could have tried, but like it would have looked like a guy in a band did that. You know, the story I'm really proud of the story that I came up with, and I really love all the elements. And what he really did was figure out how do you translate this idea to like a short film and to a screenplay and in a way that's compelling, you know. And what he did is he brought to life, you know, what I and I was just surprised. I was so surprised how he brought something to life based off of like 3, 4 pages that I wrote, you know. And I've got personally, I have like 60 pages of a narrative written, but he didn't have any of that because I didn't expect them to like buy into it the way that they did. And he came back with like his idea, and I was like, whoa, it's like I couldn't believe how he was he was like, I was thinking it'd be cool if the story, you know, did this. And I'm like, well, that's actually already in the story. I just didn't send you the long version because I didn't think you'd be interested in that. And so it was really cool to then we just started collaborating through all that. Um, and yeah, and so that's kind of how it came through. But you know, Garrett brought a lot of creativity to the story, so a lot of credit to him as to how that would be delivered visually. You know, and I had a picture in my head of what it looked like, and thankfully we were kind of speaking the same language, and so there wasn't really any friction as to like how that would get delivered. And a lot of it then also came down to just having really good actors, which again, to Garrett's credit, finding the people, picking them, and then obviously to those actors, to their credit, to have people that are so talented, you know, you know, for an actor to hear you want to be in a music video, you know, it's like probably not like the most. It's like you don't have lines, you know,
Yeah.
you're like pantomiming basically, you know. But obviously Garrett let them know that's like we're trying to make this like kind of like a short film, and they were all grateful to be involved, you know. So yeah, it's really cool, very different process for us.
I watched it yesterday, and when it ended, I thought, man, this can't be how this ends. And then Death Clock auto played. So thankfully, I watched it not 2 days ago since that dropped yesterday. So I was like,
Nice.
okay, good. And then did I read right in the comments from Jess, the main actor, that this is like going to be 4 more installments?
Yeah, he's just spilling the beans, I
Okay.
guess, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I'm sure people can just see from after they watch the Death Clock video, you know, the story's not over. And so yeah, we're gonna do our best to try and keep that going. Obviously, it's very difficult because to make things like this is not inexpensive by any stretch of the, you know, imagination. It is, yeah, it's expensive to do that. Um, and we don't make more money from having a cool short film. So
Yeah.
we just it just costs more money. But we're doing that because we you know believe in the messaging of the story and also as well like you know we just want to give people quality art more or less. Um, and so um, yeah, hopefully people appreciate that.
Was the full story like film wise, filmed at the same time? Or I mean, is it like, do you have a timetable for the other releases? Or I mean, I know you're
Um,
probably not going to mention the dates, but I just meant, is that something that's already planned out?
yeah, so I mean, we filmed a good portion of both videos at one time when we were all there, and we filled in some other pieces another time just because there were other components that weren't ready. Um, but Yeah, we're kind of taking it piece by piece, and um, we don't want to rush anything. It's also a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of preparation, and we want to make sure that we're being thoughtful about everything and trying to approach it in a sustainable way too. So yeah, there's there's still more work to be done to that effect.
Like without knowing what the other tracks would be, were these songs like written to go together in this sequence? Because I'm pretty sure like Death Clock comes before Parasite on the album, right?
No, Parasite
Or
comes before. Yeah,
okay,
it
but
comes.
it's like
Yeah,
spaced. There's songs between it. So I was just thinking,
yeah, yeah,
are the tracks in this film like were they meant to go together in this order in your mind?
yeah. So I
Okay.
mean, we always kind of knew we always kind of knew the songs that stood out to us and we felt most lended itself to a music video. And also, if we're going to tell the story, what are sort of like these like most important elements of the story? Um, and because of the things that, the themes of Parasite and the themes that are in Death Clock and what they're tied to, we felt that those two videos could best serve, um, you know, communicating, you know, major components of the storyline, and also that the music videos could be used to fill in parts of the story that you're not going to maybe be able to picture or even get in a song. Um, and so the goal was for the music videos to give you more than what the actual album gives you to help you start understanding this world and the storyline. And there's going to be other things that we release along the way. They're going to sort of fill in those gaps as well. And so we're trying to use a bunch of different, artistic mediums to convey the full picture of the story. Because as well, I think songs are really powerful to communicate in one way, and obviously video, like film and acting, in another way, and then also just written narrative as well. And so the hope is that all three of these things kind of give you um, uh, a well-rounded picture.
Is there a hope or plans to once everything is out to like release it as one full cinematic
Yeah,
type thing or
yeah, we would love to.
yeah.
Obviously with that, there's the constraints of budgetary constraints and dreaming big,
Yeah.
is us um, you know, submitting it for, you know, film festivals, and maybe somebody who has money goes like, "Hey, I like that story. You guys need money to finish it?" We're like, "Yeah, we do."
Yeah.
That's dreaming big. I know Garrett's actually submitted it um to some film festivals, um and had a good response, like initial response from like the people that receive it. So I hope for his sake, and for Kevin's, that can go somewhere further as well. Because they're super talented guys, and it'd be really cool for them to get that opportunity themselves. So
You mentioned, sending the concept to the record label. Like, is this like when you write lyrics, kind of the same question that I asked early on about,
hmm
electronic elements.
hmm
Like, do you write lyrics always previous to music, or does it work both ways where sometimes you write a riff and it inspires
yeah.
you to write a lyric?
Yeah, so there were a lot of lyrics that I had written for this album with zero songs
Okay.
in mind. But then there were a lot of songs that I wrote, you know, um, without any lyrics prepared either. Um, and a lot of my lyric writing I did apart from the music because I wanted to just think about how to tell the story. And then and so there were a lot of songs that I wrote that just aren't on this album because they don't fit. I didn't felt like they fit um, any of the themes or ways that we could communicate the story. Because all the songs, I kind of view them as like chapters of the story and vehicles for conveying a certain picture in the story and a certain emotion as well. And so with that, it has to just be the right song. And so with this album was definitely a little bit different than normal for me. But it helped because it like I felt a lot more organized, like in my brain. A lot of times I feel I have so many thoughts and so many ideas and so many like half ideas, and it kind of helped me to be focused, a little bit more clearly about like knowing what each song is supposed to do and what it's for. And um, yeah, so that's kind of how that went.
And that's the first time you've done it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done a few songs like that before when I knew what I wanted. I just knew I wanted to write a song about something in particular, and I had the story in my head. And so I crafted everything that way. But that's really only happened with like three or four songs in our history that I can remember. But they're like three or four of like my favorite songs we've ever written, too. So um, I'm hoping this will be my favorite album.
So yeah, that should inspire you to write more that way, I guess.
Yeah, well, and yeah, I am, and I'm looking forward to that. This was a little like challenging to commit to, but it's also been really rewarding as well.
Well, besides obviously, hopefully, some more great videos, here this year. What else can we, expect moving forward? I'm assuming lots of touring to hype this album.
Yeah, we're hoping to get out on the road and play some shows. I mean, we're looking forward to just playing this music. It's been a little bit since we've been out too, because we've been working on this a lot, and a few of our guys had a bunch of kids. So, you know, it's good. It's good. It was good for all of us to just be home, be with our families, and be there as, two of the guys, they were first time dads, which was, it's exciting. And now they're a little bit more experienced, and their kids are getting a little bit older. And when I say a little bit older, like, one. But yeah, so that's what we're looking forward to, and more music, more music.
Right on. Well, I'm absolutely loving Wasteland and, hope to get to see you guys live at some point here coming up and appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, where are you from?
Oklahoma.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Near
We've
Tulsa.
yeah, we've played Oklahoma City a lot over the years. That's like one of the cities we like always went through,
Yeah.
coming up through Texas or going down to Texas. Um, yeah, we played this, I forget what it was called, like the 80 something Street Collective or whatever.
Yeah.
They
89th
kept ch
Street.
89th Street, yeah.
Yeah.
They've changed the name of that place numerous times, but every time the name changes, like, man, it's still the same, just
Yeah.
dirty venue,
Yeah.
But always a good time,
Yeah.
always a
If
good
you're in the
time
back,
there.
you ain't seeing the stage.
No, no, you're not seeing the stage, and who knows what you're hearing.
Yeah. But it's still a fun experience somehow. I don't know.
It is. It is. There's something about it. It's just gritty and fun. But yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, well, yeah, if we come through Tulsa, hit me up and I'll get you in the show.
Right on. Appreciate that. There you go, Steve Cobucci of Wolves at the Gate. A huge thank you to Shane from Adam Splitter PR for his continued support of this podcast throughout the years. And of course, a massive thank you to Steve for taking some time out there to sit there and talk to me on Zoom about everything that's going on here with Wasteland and other stuff to look forward to from Wolves at the Gate. Got a good 30-minute conversation in there with Steve, and looking forward to hopefully having him back on the podcast one day. Maybe after, this album cycle's completed and they have, all the album or all the songs out for this, kind of video story we were talking about. If it's fully like, like I mentioned there when I was talking to him, that the main actor in the first two videos that came out, had said on YouTube in the comments that it was going to be a 6-part video series. And Steve, of course, kind of let it be known that I guess that wasn't supposed to be leaked. But hopefully, since that's out there, hopefully that is really where we're going. But even if it's only a couple more songs, it doesn't matter. These two that are out are excellent. So no matter what we get coming forward is going to be great. So really looking forward to that. So again, be sure to follow Wolves at the Gate on YouTube or their other socials so you don't miss when that happens. If you're a first-time listener and you showed up here because you're a fan of Wolves at the Gate, much appreciated. As you could guess there from this episode number, there are 421 episodes previous to this. And it really spans the gamut of rock and roll. We've always leaned towards the hard or the heavy side of rock. And it's not just metal. Wolves at the Gate is obviously a heavy metal band. But we've had on hard rock bands, classic rock bands, clear down to even a couple of non-rock genre artists as well. But if you like heavy, a couple different members of Killswitch and Gage have been on here in the past. A couple different members of Seven Dust, members of the Black Dahlia Murder. Rest in peace, Trevor. He was on here at one point. Michael Stahn, the godfather of melodic death metal, with Dark Tranquillity, the original vocalist of In Flames, and of course now with the great, amazing band The Halo Effect, who has a couple great albums out now that you should check out if you're not familiar with. If you're familiar with Michael, I'm sure you're familiar with that, but if you're an In Flames fan, definitely check out The Halo Effect, because this very much plays on the sound that band had in the 90s. So check that out. But who have I not said when it comes to heavy? The classics: Megadeth, Death Angel, Testament, Creator. All those bands have had members on this podcast. Toxic Holocaust, Battlecross, newer artists like that. Insight has been on here a couple times. Richie Cavalera, the son of Max Cavalera, and he will be back very soon. I'll talk more about that here in a second. But man, all over the place, members of Lynyrd Skynyrd, Deep Purple, Thin Lizzy, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard. Who am I forgetting? Kiss? Probably the most famous person that's ever been on this podcast. Gene Simmons of Kiss, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, Jeff Tate, formerly of Queensryche, members of Tesla, Warrant, Great White, LA Guns, Slaughter, Bon Jovi, all the big bands of the 80s. Like I said, we span the gamut. Newer, if you like newer, modern rock from the radio, stuff like Hellstorm, Shinedown, Three Doors Down, Saliva, all of that era of stuff. Members have been on here many times. Clutch, Crowbot. Again, check it out. TheThunderUnderground.com. You can listen to pretty much everything right there. Wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're listening on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, wherever, hit subscribe, follow, or like so you don't miss future episodes. Future episodes coming out. I've got a couple coming up. The next couple episodes will be with guys that have been on this podcast before, but it's been a while for both of them. Josh Todd of Buckcherry, the lead vocalist and only constant member of Buckcherry, was on this podcast about 4 years ago, but he is back now because Buckcherry has a brand new album coming out here in just another couple weeks. Actually, I believe it's next week. And then Richie Cavalera, like I alluded to a minute ago, the vocalist of the band Insight. He's been on this podcast twice before, but the last time was nearly 9 years ago, so there's a lot of catching up to do on that one. I've also got a couple others scheduled. I'll, of course, announce once they have been completed. But until then, dig through these past episodes and give us a follow on all the socials, because there's social media content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube that differs, from just the standard podcast fare or the podcast clips. I put out a lot of content that, of course, revolves around hard rock and heavy metal. But what I'm meaning is it's extra from these episodes of the podcast. And if you came here and are now listening to this podcast because of a reel or a short that you saw, it's very much appreciated as well. So anytime you see something anywhere in the socials, if you just like, share, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff helps spread it around in the algorithm so your friends see it as well. And that's what we're looking for. I've also got shirts back in stock finally. So shoot me a message, or if you see me out in public, if you're in any of the areas I'm at, I'm glad to get you some stuff as well, because there's also shot glass, koozies, stickers, guitar picks, all that kind of great stuff. All right. Once again, a massive thank you to Sunset Tattoo, DEB Concerts, Rocklahoma Bitches, Adam Splitter PR, and of course, Steve Cobucci of Wolves at the Gate. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.